Hello, welcome back to our bookshop in Tring. I'm Ben Morehouse. So we've got another author interview today. We're talking to the rather wonderful Chris Whitaker, lives the other end of Hertfordshire. His book, We Begin at the End, came out in April. He was due to come to our bookshop for an event, but sadly that couldn't happen. So we're very pleased to be able to have him on our YouTube channel. He's talking to Kath Tomlin.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Ben. So we're here today with Chris Whitaker. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
thanks for having me.
So congratulations on your success with your first two novels, and we're going to talk about your third one just being published, We Begin at the End, which I must say I absolutely loved. I thought it was beautifully written. Do you want to kind of tell us how do you summarise what this book is about?
Okay, so I'm going to point out that if you hear any noise, we're having building work done. So apologies for that, first of all. We begin at the end. Right, so the story follows 13-year-old Duchess Day Radley as she tries to protect her family in the wake of a convicted killer returning to the small California town that they live in. But in trying to protect them, she sets off a chain of events that have these massive consequences for her and the whole town. I know it's kind of pitched as a crime book. I don't know if you thought it was particularly crimey, but I always kind of see it as like a coming of age crime story, because it's kind of a year in the life of this girl, of Duchess, and the police chief in the small town. And it just kind of follows what happens over that year. It's kind of humorous as well as being a thriller, and it's kind of about the sacrifices people make for the people that they love.
Yeah, it very much seemed to me that it was as much about the characters and the characters' relationships and response to the circumstances, rather than the kind of like mystery and the who done it. It's about relationships.
I would find that
much more than anything else, I would say.
yeah, I find that more interesting than the crime itself. You know, the kind of ripple effect of it. I tend to write what I would like to read, and I prefer a crime book that looks at the consequences and follows the characters after the event. And the event's normally the least interesting thing about the book, I find.
Yeah, it's actually the impact, isn't it, that it has on them. And so you chose to again set your novel in a small town in America, in California. What draws you to those small towns to recreate worlds in your fiction?
Oh, it's just so many things. They're just such a good fit for crime. It's like, but first off, the gun laws. You know, you get to have characters with guns or easier access to guns, and to us they kind of seem crazy. I mean, watching the riots and things lately, did you see that couple that came out the front of their house with their, it's mad, isn't it? I can't get my head around it. I see something like that and it seems like a different world, you know. Especially the type of gun. The man had this big, scary looking machine gun and just pointing it at these people that are just walking past, and I don't know how you're allowed to do that, but you are. So that helps. And I think I don't have as I said before, I'm not that interested in the crime necessarily, like the police procedural side of it, and they have a less kind of regimented police force over there. So you get a small town, or I can write a small town with a sheriff that kind of dictates what happens, and it's more autonomous. So it gives me a bit more freedom. And as well, the story's kind of, it's this big story, and I needed a really big canvas to tell the story on. And Duchess ends up in Montana and trying to get back to California, and she kind of goes on this big epic road trip at the end of the book, and it just wouldn't have worked anywhere else. It just it's the perfect fit, I think.
Yeah, it does work really well. And do we move on to talk a bit more about the characters? So Walk, the local police chief, who to me he had such kind of kindness and integrity and sense of justice, but such a vulnerability as well. Just his love for the town. I think you describe him as the captain of the ship that never leaves port.
Yes, yeah.
And also being Duchess's anchor as well. He's kind of like a father figure to this teenager who's in terrible circumstances. So what was it about his character, what inspired his character?
To start with the book, We Begin at the End, it kind of begins with a scene 30 years before the main story starts, and it's kind of the end for a lot of these characters. You know, they can't work past what happens. There's a death of a child, and Walker's kind of involved in that at the start, because he's joining the rest of the town, walking through the woods looking for this girl, and he's the one that finds her, and his life kind of stalls at that point. And I had this idea for this character. I mean, you don't learn his first name or anything other than the fact that he's called Walk, or Chief Walker, and he kind of clings to his high school nickname, and he never really moves on because his best friend's gone to prison. So he just spends his whole life kind of treading water, waiting for things to happen. And then, of course, when Vincent, his best friend, gets out of prison 30 years later, he's not the same person that he remembers, whereas Walker's tried his hardest to kind of preserve this perfect childhood that he had up until that point. So he resists. So there's this town, Cape Haven, it's in California, and it's kind of falling away. The cliffs are eroding and houses are falling into the sea. And it's become affluent, and it's like a desirable place. People buy second homes there, but he resists it. So every time someone puts in a planning application or something, he'll try and reject it, because he wants this town to just stay until Vincent gets back, and then they can kind of start again. And but he's ill in the book. I mean, he's got Parkinson's, and I gave him this illness because it kind of forces him to grow up, because it kind of ages him and makes him look at his own mortality and things like that. And yeah, he has quite a hard time through the book. I think he starts in one place and ends up somewhere he wouldn't expect to end up.
Yeah, and his kind of he's so reserved as well. He doesn't kind of like give very much away.
No.
No. And in some ways that's similar to Duchess as well, who's a very hardened teenager, very, very rude, very blunt, which can be really funny at times as well.
Yeah.
You still root for her.
Yes, that was really, yeah. Duchess was, I mean, the book took about 3 years to write, and probably half of that time was just spent purely working on Duchess and kind of writing and rewriting her dialogue and her narrative until it felt right, until it felt authentic. And she's 13, and she can kind of appear a bit precocious, but she's not had a regular life. You know, she's not a 13-year-old that we might meet or come across. She's kind of lived more in her 13 years than most people have in a lifetime. But she kind of, Walk is her anchor to everything good. Like, her mum tells her Walk is all good, and she doesn't believe it. She doesn't believe her mum, and she doesn't believe that anyone is like that, but you can tell that she wants to, and he's as close a thing as she's got to a father figure. Yeah, so their relationship is kind of goes back and forth throughout the book. You see her being quite rude to him a lot, but he doesn't react generally, and he's just calm all the time and kind to her. Yeah, it was important that she had someone like that in her life.
And then that's really interestingly paralleled in part 2 with her relationship with Hal, who she puts up so many barriers towards Hal, and he just has this quiet, it's just constant just acts of love, isn't it? He can't talk to her, but he does so many things for her. It's, I mean, that relationship, that touched me the most, I think. Yeah,
it's funny. So my American editor was, well, I got her edits back after we had finished the UK edit, and the editors make notes in the margins, and sometimes when you're editing the book, it can read like a long list of things you've done wrong, and it can be quite, like, you need thick skin because you spent years writing this book, and all of a sudden someone's pulling it apart. I love that part of it, but I know some authors that can really struggle with it. But occasionally she'll write something really nice in the margin, which like just lifts you, because like she'll say, I love this paragraph or something, and she picked out the bits between Duchess and Hal, which I loved as well. Because you really want Duchess to warm to him, but she's so guarded, and she's so harsh, and she's so unforgiving of everyone.
She's so broken by events, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. So she arrives in Montana, which is a world away from her life, to live with her grandfather. And she doesn't like the fact that he's now their carer. You know, she's this practical stranger, and she says, you know, that he wasn't there when she needed her, and now all of a sudden he's kind of stepping up and trying to be a parent, and it's fractious. It's a difficult relationship.
Yeah, and then that paralleled again with Thomas Noble, the teenager that she meets.
Yes,
and that he loves her and wants to protect her and accepts her, but kind of just for who she is, not because of the terrible circumstances.
Yeah, I love Thomas Noble. I really love that relationship because I think you can forget sometimes that she's 13 and you kind of see, because she takes on so much responsibility and she's such a carer for her brother, that she kind of has no life outside of it. So you get these moments where you remember that she's 13, she's about to have her first kiss or she's about to go to her first dance. And I think the parallels make it all the sadder, and the humour as well. I think the humour, I think I was writing something the other day and I said, when I'm writing the book, the humour is like coming up for air, if you're drowning or something like that. It feels like that, like you need it, you need that release. And those are the parts of the book where you really see her, you get a glimpse at the girl she could be or could have been under different circumstances.
And do you have a vision of what comes next for these characters when you finish the novel, or do you just leave it there and without giving the ending away, but do you let it kind of speak for itself, or in your head have you got?
So this book, more than any other, I've had the most messages about the ending, because it's kind of bittersweet and it's sad, and I knew how the book was going to end without giving anything away. I knew it was going to be a difficult ending to write, and I spoke to my editor about it because there were questions about it being too sad, if that's the thing. But Duchess spends the book kind of looking for her selfless act, because her mum tells her selfless acts are what make you a good person, and I think she finds it at the end. So I always knew that was how the book was going to end. But beyond that, I don't know, I just see the book as a snapshot of life, 1 year in the life of these people, and their lives happen before and they'll happen afterwards. And I get readers that are desperate to know that things will be okay.
Yeah.
I have ideas in my head of what might happen, but I don't know. I just, I don't know. I think there's a line in the book where we don't always get the ending we deserve. We just get the end. And that's true of this book, I think. Some characters do and some characters don't. And I think it's true to life, rather than wrap things up with a neat bow on them. We're just looking at their lives over a year. So we can assume that everything will be all right.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us back to the fact that it's a character-driven novel rather than a kind of whodunit. It's actually about the lives of the characters and the impact that the crimes have had on the characters, rather than a resolution of a mystery. Yeah,
I think so. And I think that sometimes so if you pick up a crime book, like you'll get a hardened crime reader that will want to read like a James Patterson, something faster paced. But I think there's room for all different types of story within the crime genre, and it's just about pitching it right and getting it right, with the blurb and the cover. And I think my publishers have done a brilliant job with that.
I mean, one of the other our bookshop interviews, we're talking about kind of the labelling of genre, and I mean, how do you feel about your novels being placed on the crime novels bookshelf in a bookshop?
Part of me worries that like a die-hard crime reader will be disappointed, and then I'm very happy for them to be crime, because I love crime fiction. I always read crime fiction. I love to be part of the community. They're the best writers. Everyone is lovely. I like doing the events and things like that. It's brilliant to be part of it. But I just it's hard, isn't it? Because it does need to go somewhere. Whereas I did a book club the other night, and it was a group of people, and they all, like, none of them could agree on where it should go, and they kind of all debated it. And one of them said it should be in women's fiction, and and another
it's got a female character in it.
And another one suggested saga, which I didn't think was quite right. And it was just, but I like that. It's just a story.
I mean, that makes a novel, doesn't it? The richness of a novel, that it can cross genres. I mean, we invented genre, so I don't think you can classify a novel directly into one. It's always going to cross over.
I mean, there's plenty of books that do fit. If you're looking for a holiday read, or if you're looking for a fast-paced crime thriller, there's loads that will fit into different boxes and things. And then there'll be novels that straddle different boxes, and room for everything.
And also, if someone comes to your novel thinking that they're reading a die-hard crime thriller, and then experiences something different, that might then branch them out to be reading fiction as well. So it's a way of exposing more literature to people.
That, or they will send me a message saying it's not crime.
You got to make it, yeah.
Yeah, which I've had as well. Yeah, no, I don't mind though. I like, you know, I see.
Yeah.
I think the books are like love stories. Like all 3 books that I've written, I can see a love story in them.
Yeah.
I think that's the heart of the story, and those are the bits I care most about when I'm writing. And yeah, it's a story. It's it doesn't fit neatly. Like life doesn't really, does it? You can just put your life into, you know, whatever box. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your writing process? So this took you 3 years. So how do you plan it all out? Is it post-it notes over your wall, or
yeah, no,
spreadsheets?
I'm terrible at planning. So I sat down with my editor 3 years ago, and I pitched her this book, and I said it's going to be this, you know, I've got this idea for this character, and this, because I always start with a visual image before I start the book, which is really strange. And I had this visual image of Duchess. She was got this small, kind of thin girl with a Stetson on and a gun, and looking for revenge. So I pitched it as, I'm going to write this revenge story. It's going to, I'll deliver it in 6 months. You know, we'll edit it. It'll be out in a year. And then it evolved into this kind of massive coming of age crime story, you know, that follows Duchess over this year in her life. And but I like that about it. I mean, it makes it really difficult to write though, because I don't plan it. I'll know how it's going to end and loosely how it's going to begin, but how I get there is kind of an organic process and will change massively. Like the first draft that I deliver to the book that will end up on the shelves, they could be different books. You know, they are unrecognisable. But I haven't found a process that works better for me, sadly. Yeah, I desperately want it, because it's so, you know, it takes up so much time. And I work part-time in the library, and I trade in the stock market as well. So I've kind of got 3 jobs. And I've been writing a teenage book as well, so that's kind of the 4th job. And we've got a newborn baby and 2 boys, and we're in massive building work, so done. And then,
wow.
So it doesn't leave much time, and it's like a terrible sleeper as well. And if the book's not going right, or if the plot's not going well, or if it just doesn't feel right, which happens all the time, then I don't sleep very well. And so it's like it's a bittersweet process. It really,
So is writing, is it something that's exhausting or exhilarating, or a mixture of both?
It's definitely, it swings, both. It's definitely both. It's like peaks and troughs, you know. There'll be a point where it will all come together and it will feel right, and it's totally worth it. You know, the payoff at that point is worth all the, I don't know, my wife will probably say that it isn't worth it, because I can be, I don't know, it's just like, it can put me in a strange mood, you know, where I just can't see it. It's like being in a fog sometimes when I'm stuck and I can't see my way out of it, and it just kind of sours my mood in general. Like, I won't be like moody or anything because we've got the kids and I'll be happy and stuff, but I just can't switch off, kind of. I can't just sit down and watch a film, because I'll be constantly just thinking I should be at my desk trying to fix this. It's like sentences and paragraphs, I'll agonise over it. You know, I can spend a month on a paragraph and then I can delete it, and it's just, it really does drive me a bit mad.
And at what point do you kind of give it up and say that's now done? Do you leave that up to your editor, or and is that difficult to draw a line under it?
But no, I quite like, so the point where my editor comes in, Catherine, my editor, is brilliant. She's so good, and it's kind of like, I'll get to a point where I just can't do it anymore. You know, I can't change anything else. I can't see this story anymore. I need to step away for a while, and then it's like bringing in backup, like reinforcements, and she'll tell me what's working. And the first edit will be quite general, so she'll just give me some pointers and say, I think we should do this, I think we should do that, and then we'll talk about how best to do it. And that point I kind of feel, you know, better about it, and then we'll go through another edit, then a copy edit, then a line edit, then the American team came in and did another full edit, and it's only just recently been signed off in America, so it's published here before we'd even finished, and it won't come out there till March. But I kind of got this.
Will that be a different version?
No, it's so we've managed to keep 99% of it the same.
Right.
Which was there was some last second changes in the UK, but the paperback and the hardback will be very slightly different, but nothing anyone would notice other than me, because I drive myself mad with it all.
Now I want to read it and see if I can work out.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't. no, they're just brilliant. They're so impressive. You know, this is the first book. I mean, Tall Oaks, my debut, sold in America to a smaller publisher, and I loved them and they were brilliant. But this was with a big publisher and a big editor, and she, you know, some of the books she's edited, like Big Little Lies and The Help and things like that, and American Dirt she did recently, and they're just so good, you know, and so thorough. And her team, plus Catherine in the UK team, you know, it's kind of a real collective effort. So my name might be on the cover. I feel like there should be as well.
And so you used to work, or you still work in financial trading?
Yes.
So what made the leap into? Have you always had a novel in you?
So it was kind of a dream job at school, and then it felt like a dream, just a dream, you know, kind of out of reach. And I went to work in the city, and had some good experiences, and kind of escaped with my soul relatively intact. But I was about to turn 30. And I just read a book called The Last Child by John Hart, and I absolutely loved it. It was like just one of the best crime books I've ever read. And I read an interview with John Hart, and he was a really successful lawyer at the time, and he quit his job to write his debut crime novel. It was like turning his back on safety and security. And the next day I did it. I did the same. I quit my city job and didn't tell my wife.
Day.
Yeah. She was pregnant at the time.
Oh my goodness.
So I came home and said, I've quit my job. I'm gonna be a writer. And like, I hadn't really mentioned this to her before. It was like she was like, do you know how to write a book? I said, no, I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So we moved to we had a nice flat, nice car, security. We kind of lost everything, sold everything, moved to Spain for a while, where I wrote Tall Oaks. And then we came back, and I didn't know how the whole publishing industry worked. I didn't know that you needed an agent. I didn't know anything about how you even got an agent. I didn't know it was so difficult. Like my agency, I'm with Curtis Brown. I think they get hundreds of submissions a month, and they sign like a few people a year. So the odds are really stacked against you. And had I known that, I might not have done it. But yeah, it worked out well. And then Tall Oaks was plucked from the slush pile, and I went to meet with some agents in London, met with a few of them, and then signed with my agent, who I'm still with now, who I love. She's brilliant, Catherine Summerhayes. And then I got a publishing deal from there, and so it kind of worked out well. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's amazing. What a gamble. But it certainly paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel lucky. You know, I feel like it could have gone either way, but yeah, just right place at the right time, maybe.
And what was it like publishing a novel in lockdown?
Tough, actually. That was really, really difficult. It was because we had a lot of discussions about it, and I resisted, and I said it's a big mistake. You know, I think we should push the whole thing a year and line up with America. And my publisher had faith, and they said, look, we've got, you know, built up a lot of momentum and things like that, and so we went with it, and it was a good move. It seems to have been a good move, so they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So would you have had kind of like launches and experiences and things you've had to cancel?
I did, yeah. I had a book launch lined up and had paid the deposit and sent out the invites and everything, so we cancelled that. And then I hope to do something for the paperback, but the paperback's now been brought forward, so I'm not going to get a chance to do that. So I have to have a party later on. I'm hoping to go to America when they launch that next month. That's my plan.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to do that by then.
I know, I hope so. Yeah, it was it's a difficult one though, isn't it? Because you just it was so unheard of what we're all going through.
Yeah.
And, to have a book all of a sudden hit the shelves and no one can go into the bookshops to get the shelves. I just couldn't get my head around, you know, how it could possibly work.
Yeah.
Ebook sales have been better, but I have missed it. I've missed going around the bookshops, and you know, because it was it's one of their big books, my publisher. So they sent me all over the country. I've been to bookshops to meet with people, and been to Scotland and met with all the booksellers just before, and then like a week before it was all locked down, and yeah, it was a tough call. Because I know loads of books have been pushed back. You know, I've seen loads of my friends' books have been pushed back a year, but who's to say, well, we'll be in a year? You just don't know anything, really, do you?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned in your acknowledgements and in other interviews that the book blogging community has been really
Amazing.
helpful and supportive, and
Yeah, I just don't know where I'd be without them. They are, like, I've got some of my closest friends, like Liz Barnsley, a book blogger I met just because she read Tall Oaks, and but they're just so brilliant and supportive. And you know, I can be having a down day or writing cannot be going well, and one of them will send me a message or tweet about the book or review the book, and it makes it feel like it's all worthwhile. They really are. Yeah, they're like the lifeblood of the industry, and yeah, I just think they're incredible.
I guess you need that that kind of the eyes of other people as well. I mean, you talked about your editors, but you also need people just to receive it for a book and say how it's being received, because you kind of get just caught up in the story yourself, and it becomes, you know, it comes kind of blank for you after you're so caught up in writing it that you kind of can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah, I mean, I
haven't actually written a novel myself. I imagine that's what it's like.
It is like that. It's exactly like that. I completely forget that it's going to be a book. You know, I'll just be so into the story, I'll forget that I have to send it to an editor, and there'll be a sales team and an art department and everyone involved. Then there'll be actual readers at the end of it. Because I think it might derail me. You know, if I start thinking about who I'm writing it for, rather than just telling a story, the best story that I can tell, I think it might, I might find it even harder, if that's possible.
So you've got a baby at home.
1 week old.
How's that been?
She's lovely, Isabella. Yeah, so we've got 2 boys, they're 6 and 9, and now we've got Isabella. But it's been, because we're having work done on the house as well, and the work on the house was supposed to be finished before the baby arrived, but because of COVID, everything is now we've got a baby on a building site. It's been, so far it's been okay, but I mean, it's noisy and dusty and not ideal and difficult to work. You know, I know loads of people that have done tons of writing, you know, because they've been locked down, but I found the opposite. I found it really difficult. I don't know if it's just the general noise in the world that makes it hard to concentrate and shut out. But, or if it's the building work or the baby or what it is, but it's been tough. It's been really tough.
Yeah. And so you're working on did you say a teenage novel?
Yes. Yeah, my debut. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that will come out next summer, I believe. It hasn't been announced properly yet, so I'm not sure what I'm allowed to talk about and what I'm not. But it's going to be called The Forevers. Yeah, and it's really exciting. Yeah, and then I've got to write the next crime book, which I'm contracted for. So whether that will be a crime book, who knows? Who knows where?
Have you got ideas for that, or is that just? I
have, yeah. I've got a rough idea, but whether it stays like that, I don't know. It'll probably be some love story again, or a saga, or something like that.
Or a women's book.
Exactly. Yeah.
So to finish off, I've got 9-year-old twin boys, and they've suggested a couple of questions as well.
Excellent.
So, were you good at spellings when you were at school?
No. Absolutely awful, really awful. I was not good at school at all. I struggled, found maths really difficult, even though I went to become a trader, and I found English really difficult, and I messed up my A-levels. I went out, my economics exam the night before, I went out and got really drunk, and then I missed my exam, one of my A-level exams. So I got another grade. Yeah, I missed it. Yeah, I just didn't go.
Wow.
I got, for economics, I got an N, grade N, which it meant it's fallen below the level that you need to even mark it.
Did I tell you at this point that I'm an English teacher? Yeah.
Well, I did English literature A level and loved it. That was my favourite subject.
You don't have to say that. That's fine.
No, I did, but economics, yeah.
Well, another question from my children was, what was your favourite book as a child, or books, I guess, writers?
So when I was really young, it was my mind's gone blank now. Where the Wild Things Are. Loved that book. So I really loved that. And then when I was a bit older, it was kind of, do you remember the point horror books? They're like point horror, like The Babysitter and things like that. They were a bit creepy.
No, I don't know those.
Yeah, they were really cool. And then I read a Stephen King book when I was about 12, and didn't sleep again after that. That was it.
And then did you read more Stephen King? Or did it
Yeah, I
put you
love
off?
Stephen King.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, brilliant. I mean, everyone loves Stephen King, but I think
Yeah.
sometimes because he's so big, you forget just how talented,
Yeah.
how well drawn the characters are.
Have you read his book on writing?
No, I haven't, but I do have
Yeah.
a copy. Someone bought me a copy. I don't know
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
No, someone.
More horror.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. I really like the way that his writing process and kind of like the rules that he sticks to and believes in.
Yeah.
Which I didn't agree with all of them, but it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that about. So I know loads of authors that have done crime writing courses and like how to be a fiction writer, things like that, and they pick up different tips, and some of them they drop what they've learned, and just pick out what works for them, and I think they can be really useful.
So last two questions.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favourite dinosaur?
I'm gonna go pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's been your favourite lockdown food?
Oh, that's a good one. Frozen pizza. So we've done a lot of frozen pizza.
Well, it's easy. Chuck it in the oven.
It is, yeah, and it's
And when you've got kids as well.
and chocolate as well. I really like chocolate. Yeah. Chocolate and pizza. Yeah, I've had a healthy lockdown.
Haven't we all? Good. Well, look, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you. Really interesting.
Thank you for having me.
So I wish you success with We Begin at the End. I think it's fabulous. I will be recommending it to lots of people, and I hope it goes well with your next books as well, with the Forevers and the crime, whatever comes after that.
We'll see. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, bye.
Massive thanks to Chris and to Kath for that lovely interview. We Begin at the End is available in our bookshop. Give us a call on 01442 827 653. All the other purchase blurb is in the text below this video. Thank you once again. There's loads more author interviews to come and a load more authors waiting to be interviewed. So we'll see you next time.